Win and advance, the name of the game during the postseason. 31-7 Bills over the Broncos in the wild card round. They're moving on to host the Ravens, as everyone thought. I'm Kevin Carroll. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone podcast, everybody. Andy Young joining me, as usual, from Highmark Stadium.
Bring on the Baltimore Ravens. Smooth sailing, a little more smoothly than I thought it might be against the Broncos, but here we are. Bills moving on to the divisional round.
Yeah, Andy, this game, I know you and I had different opinions heading into it, but I thought that this would have the feel of close game, a lot of stress for Bills Mafia through the first half. But with the way the Bills have made halftime adjustments throughout the season on both sides of the ball, as close as it might be in the first half, I thought the proper adjustments would be made and the Bills pulled away. But don't get me wrong, Andy, this game was stressful right up until the Bills kind of, I want to say, that pass to Ty Johnson, that touchdown on 4th and 1. We can get into that miraculous. And then Curtis Samuel with a big playoff touchdown too. I think then you could breathe a sigh of relief because this game really did not start out the way Bills fans and the Buffalo Bills had planned, I don't think.
Yeah, all of a sudden you look up late in the game and they've got nearly 500 yards of offense and 31 points. And you go, how the heck did this happen? It was like a 10-7 game for the most of this game, it felt like. And it got off to an ominous start for the Bills. Bills win the toss, defer. Broncos get the ball first. They convert their first third down, which has been a bugaboo for the Bills all season on defense. Then they hit the deep ball over the top to Troy Franklin from Bo Nix. And you're like, oh boy, here we go, right? The defense, which we've talked about all week as being a concern going into the playoffs for this team. Third down defense as well. And here they go, 7-0, 5 plays into the game. Well, 5 plays into the game, they didn't allow another point after that. And the Bills held the Broncos offense to 2 of 9 on third downs, which third down defense has been a major bugaboo for this team all season. Run defense, pretty stout as well throughout this game. So give credit. After that opening drive, the Bills defense made the adjustments or just did what they had to do to make it happen and really shut down this Broncos attack, which you kind of thought maybe could happen because of Sean McDermott's history against rookie quarterbacks. But that slow start had people questioning, all right, and then they settle for some field goals, and it doesn't seem like they're clicking completely. And then, boom, they blow the doors off.
Yeah, I mean, that start with the Broncos getting that touchdown right off the bat, and then the Bills drive down the field, settle for a field goal. Sean Payton, we know his team has been really good in the red zone all regular season long. To me, that was a concern right there, but sure enough, the next time the Bills got the ball after forcing a 3 and out, they methodically eat clock, slowly go down the field. James Cook, with a monster afternoon, ends up capping off that drive to get them the lead at 10-7 at that point. And then, like you said, they put it away from there. Cook, 23 carries, 120 yards on the ground, 210 yards total rushing on the afternoon. And the usual suspects, James Cook, Josh Allen, and Ty Johnson, all contributing. And I thought Allen, big like he needs to be in the postseason with his legs at certain key moments.
Yeah, this was good on good. It was something we talked about all week long. How would the Bills' offensive line, which has been great at protecting Josh Allen, Josh has a big part in that himself too, fewest sacks allowed in the NFL, against the Broncos defense that had the most sacks in the NFL and has a very strong defensive line and defensive front seven and a defensive player of the year candidate in Patrick Surtain at cornerback, a shutdown corner. How would those two units, good on good, Bills offense, Broncos defense, fare? And safe to say, for the most part, the Bills offense completely dominated the line of scrimmage in this game. Spencer Brown was fantastic. Bills able to run the ball, control the clock. Time of possession was well over 2-1 for the Bills. I think it was 41-something minutes in favor of the Bills, only about 19 minutes for the Broncos. And I said something during the game that kind of type of game from the Bills where they're able to run the ball so often and so successfully, it does kind of limit the amount of possessions that the Bills have to be able to put this thing away. So like you said, and like you kind of predicted throughout last week, that maybe the Bills would start slow and it snowballs and then they blow the doors off. That's kind of exactly how it worked out, because they're able to get James Cook going. Josh does some plays with his legs as he usually does. Ty Johnson doing his thing too. And unfortunately, Ray Davis gets hurt in this one with a head injury. We'll see how that goes throughout the week. But overall, Bills offense just obliterated what some thought was the best defense in the NFL in the Broncos.
Yeah, and you can't say enough about the running backs in the passing game. And I'm talking about Ty Johnson, Andy. I mean,
my guy, Ty.
Exactly. Another guy you sat down with who ends up performing well, and will include Dawson Knox. I mean, Josh missed the pass to Dawson Knox to get Knox's annual wild card touchdown. But Ty Johnson, I mean, we talk about Sean McDermott talked about trust. Everyone talks about trust. You know, this play to Ty Johnson, I think, is the centerpiece of this game. And just another one of those Josh Allen Bills highlights that go on tape from this past season. That is just another wow moment. I mean, you're talking about a running back with the awareness running across the back of the end zone to get a ball that the Bills decided to go for on 4th and 1 and went to the air. And Ty Johnson catches that ball and basically lights out Denver Broncos.
Yeah, a couple of things to shout out on that play. First of all, the decision to go for it on 4th down, the right call by Sean McDermott. He very easily could have kicked a field goal there and just settled for 3 points. And, you know, Tyler Bass has been hitting them, but maybe he misses it. Or maybe he makes it and it's just 3 points and you move on to the next series and Denver's still in the game. Josh Allen, the way that he stood in that pocket, then rolled out, kind of stood there, waited for something to come open, and then hits Ty Johnson, who was a player, if you recall, on our special playoff preview podcast we had last week at Big Ditch Brewing Company. I said was a player to watch, an unsung hero that we're going to be talking about if the Bills go on a postseason run here. He did just that. Johnson, fantastic out of the backfield as a pass-catching running back, so trusted in pass protection, and throughout the course of this season has continued to make big plays in the passing game, catching the football. Remarkable awareness. He told me after the game in the locker room that he was on that end line and thought it was close. He didn't know that he got his foot up there, so he was a little worried about it watching on replay, but somehow he makes that great catch, picks it up off the ground right before it hits, secures it, and then keeps that 1 foot and ankle just up long enough, laying on the ground so that the ball is a completed catch and a touchdown. Josh Allen puts it in a place that is just ridiculous, that only Ty Johnson could have gotten it. And think about the route he's on. That's a wheel route or a swing pass out of the backfield, and he loops all the way around the left side of the back of the end zone to the right side, comes into Allen's view. Allen, at the very last second before he gets hit, delivers, and it's perfect. And it's just one of those jaw-dropping plays that Josh Allen continues to make that had people saying he's the MVP because of the moments, the stats too, but the moments and the incredible way that he does it. Also why people say he's the MVP. We'll hear a lot of talk about that all this coming week, too.
Yeah, going up against Lamar Jackson, I'm sure we will. And, Andy, it's another one where it was 4th down and 1 yard to go. You have the Allen touchdown on 4th and 1 against the Chiefs during the regular season. And who knows how this game plays out. But it seems like I said earlier, this was the key play of this game that basically said, Denver, it's just not your day. I mean, I was screaming for Josh to just pick up the 1st down while he's standing there. He could easily have run, but man, he just stands there and effortlessly flicks this ball. And Ty Johnson, it's not like it's coming up eye level or where a normal wide receiver would like it. This is a running back who has to go to his shoelaces to make the catch. Just purely incredible.
Yeah, I sat down with Ty Johnson earlier this season. I believe it was after the Lions game when he had done so well scoring the long touchdown in the Rams game the week prior and that loss out in LA, and then had those big plays in the Lions game. They went to him on fourth down there, if you recall, in that game too, and the trust that Joe Brady has, the trust that Josh Allen has. And Ty talked to me about that, hey, it means a lot that they have the trust, but it means you better damn catch the ball, is I think what he said to me verbatim, and I use that in our story. I mean, he's just a guy that has continuously had a knack for making big plays, and boy, are they lucky to have him, because he really has been a difference maker for this team.
So balanced in this game. I mean, we talk about the 30 passing touchdowns, 30 rushing touchdowns. You look at Bills, 210 yards rushing, 261, Andy, through the air. And I brought up Dawson Knox. He was involved. Kincaid, maybe he didn't catch that ball, but it's irrelevant at this point. And then Curtis Samuel, who a lot of people have been critical of, including myself, throughout the season. But I think it was the way they were using him earlier in the year. I think what we saw in this one was Samuel able to get open. And I could be wrong. It was either his catch or Mac Hollins, where it was Patrick Surtain on him. That might have been the Mac Hollins catch. Later,
it was the touchdown too.
Okay, so it was where we've been talking all this week that, just stay away from Patrick Surtain. I don't think they cared. I think this Bills team was, we're the Buffalo Bills. We have Josh Allen on offense. We have this everybody eats mantra. If you're open, who cares who's covering you? You're getting the ball. And it was good to see Curtis Samuel take that reception, bust through a few tackles, and get to the end zone. And just another one of those highlight plays from this game.
Remember a few weeks back when they beat the Patriots here at Highmark Stadium, the first Patriots game, and Josh said after that game that we're riding that line. It's a thin line between not showing too much and trying to win every game. And I think Curtis Samuel might be a secret weapon that they've not shown a whole lot of all throughout this season. Look, Samuel's a guy who was banged up. We saw it in training camp. We've seen him banged up a couple of times in the regular season. I think he's in a better spot right now health-wise, and he's just another one of these guys where nobody is going to consistently light it up. They don't have a Jamar Chase. They don't have a CeeDee Lamb, somebody that's going to get 10 balls for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's just not how they operate. But what's magical about this team is so many guys are capable in a single spot, that a Khalil Shakir can make a huge play, that a Curtis Samuel can make a huge play. And especially these guys the defenses aren't game planning for. How do you game plan at all, right? You got to try to stop James Cook and Josh Allen, but are you doubling anybody? No, maybe not. Maybe you don't think that you have to as far as wide receivers and tight ends go. Well, that's going to leave a lot of single coverage on a lot of guys, and then Josh can just pick his poison. It's tough for defenses to game plan for any single player and try to do the old Bill Belichick of, we're going to take away what you do well and make you play left-handed, when they play with both hands all the time.
Curtis Samuel, 3 receptions. Khalil Shakir, 6. Kincaid, 3. Dawson Knox, 2. Ty Johnson, 2. Mac Hollins, that 1. Amari Cooper, 2. Keon Coleman, 1. Andy, it just holds steady, too, that everybody eats mantra. I mean, Khalil Shakir was 6, but he's Khalil Shakir, Andy, and he's just turned into such a reliable target. And just the run after the catch capability of Shakir, you just know he's not going down after that first hit. It just isn't happening. And why some of these defensive backs in the NFL don't try to wrap up Shakir on that initial contact right now blows my mind. I noticed it on a couple of plays.
I think they might be trying to wrap him up, but he gets so low that they can't. I said it during the game on X. Khalil Shakir has the contact balance of a bowling ball, right? Mm-hmm. He's just bouncing off guys and bouncing through guys. He gets lower than they do, and he's got a knack for absorbing the contact, absorbing the hit, breaking through tackles. We saw it on his punt return, one of those too, where he did that as well. I mean, he's just such a reliable guy. Great hands too. 6 for 6, 6 targets, 6 catches. Curtis Samuel, 3 targets, 3 catches. Kincaid, 3-3. Ty Johnson, 2-2. So if you go down the list, Josh isn't missing big guys very often. He's 20 of 26, and he goes for 272 yards and 2 touchdowns because all these guys are really reliable and have good hands.
Yeah, it's incredible. And Shakir ends up playing a role as a punt returner too, Andy, and actually got the Bills in good field position, which is style of running after getting the ball in his hands, which, again, I'm not saying I'm a know-it-all, but I felt good when the news came out that it was Shakir back there for punts, because there's part of you that feels that he is a guy that's so good after the run. If you give him space and give him time to run and make a move, that there were possibilities of him even breaking one off.
Yeah, Brandon Codrington out for this game with a hamstring injury, the rookie kick returner who's been the only guy throughout the course of the season to return kicks for the Bills after they brought him over from the Jets in a trade during the summer. And that was a question mark going into this game. You need to have a reliable guy back there. A lot of times in the past, it had been Micah Hyde, who was great at fielding the catch and was going to be reliable there. But I don't think he had the skills with the ball in his hands that Khalil Shakir does. So you take a guy who's done it in the past and I think had done it in college and had done it a few times for the Bills over the course of his couple of years in the NFL. And he's sure-handed, he's smart. And then those couple of times where he does get to return it, boy, he's really dangerous in the open field and incredibly slippery. So that's a great fallback option to have if Codrington is not going to be available to them.
Yeah. You touched on the offensive line a little bit earlier in the podcast, and you got to give credit where credit is due, both in the run game and in the pass game, with what these guys were able to do. And you hear from Deion Dawkins, the Bills' star offensive lineman, after the game saying, well, all we heard all week was how great this Broncos pass rush was, and, you know, what were we going to do it? And basically, yeah, we had a chip on our shoulder. Like, we're good too if we go out and do our job properly.
And don't get it twisted. Deion Dawkins takes it personal. He is pissed that he was not an all-team pro, all pro on the first or second team. Deion Dawkins said at the beginning of the year, all-pro schno. He wanted to be an all-pro this season for Josh Allen. Bills didn't have any all-pros other than Josh Allen on the second team. Deion Dawkins is pissed about it. And yeah, he heard all week. We asked him, what are you going to do with this vaunted pass rush of the Denver Broncos? EPA per play defense that was tops in the league, led the league in sacks coming into this game throughout the regular season. They heard it all, and they were pissed. Now the next question is, all right, can you do the same thing against the Ravens, which is a team that is incredibly tough and rugged? You got to keep it going 2 weeks in a row, but don't get it twisted. Deion Dawkins and those guys heard it all. They think they're disrespected, and they went out there and had a game against one of the best defenses in the NFL.
Yeah, we'll stay on the line, Andy, and switch to defense, though. Bills' defensive line, the pass rush, getting to the passer. I thought they did a solid job in the ground game in this one, but that jumps to a completely different level against the Ravens next week. I thought there were areas, too, of concern where when Bo Nix was flushed out and got on his horse, he was able to bite off big chunks of yardage when he had to. And when you have Lamar Jackson coming up to Highmark Stadium, if Bo Nix is able to do that, work's going to be done during the week to make sure Lamar Jackson doesn't get those opportunities.
Yeah, they end up getting home with a couple of sacks. One was the Matt Milano play where he ran him out of bounds. That counted as a sack for 0 yards. Still a good play. Milano showing the burst and the speed to do so. They do get a late sack from Greg Rousseau. Von Miller had a couple of pressures, but you're right. It is concerning that a couple of times Bo Nix is able to leak out when they're collapsing the pocket and go right up the middle and run for a first down. I don't know how they're going to handle Lamar Jackson in meetings past. Before the previous meeting, they'd done a pretty good job limiting Jackson in the running game, but he's playing at a different level right now. And then you pair him with Derrick Henry, who rushed for 180-some yards in their playoff opening win. I mean, it's just really tough to stop those guys. They're going to have to come up with some sort of different scheme, something, whether that's playing 5 down linemen, whether that's bringing in Dorian Williams in place of Taron Johnson in the nickel sometimes, to have 3 linebackers on the field, because they cannot let Lamar and Derrick Henry get rolling downhill. If you're going to take some medicine, make Lamar beat you through the pass, through the air, because he's done it all season to good teams. But you got to take your chances there. You can't just get pounded up front and let Henry and Lamar do the thing in the running game, because then they're going to throw over the top of you anyway, because you're playing up to try to stop that. So you got to figure that out to kind of limit that to some degree to give yourself a shot in this one.
Let's talk about Taron Johnson, that helmet-to-helmet tackle he made at the beginning of the game, gets taken off the field, does come back, so that's a good sign. You know, Ray Davis, he left two big hits to the head injury that the Bills are going to have to deal with. Cam Lewis as well, that the Bills are going to have to deal with. I mean, the Taron Johnson thing was just bad on him. I'm glad he's okay and came back in. But tough to see, but maybe some concerns too with the defensive side of the ball with those 2 injuries as we progress forward.
Yeah, we'll have to see what Sean McDermott says on Monday here in his usual injury report, which maybe we'll find out someone's in the concussion protocol, that sort of thing. But it would seem that Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis, both cleared because they were both back into the game. So that's a good sign that they're going to be okay. Maybe they've got some lingering effects on their necks. I think both of them took hard hits to the neck along with the hit to the head in the concussion protocol as well. So hopefully those guys are okay. Ray Davis, man, what a bad hit he took. And Josh kind of hung him out to dry, and I'm sure Josh will feel bad about that. He overthrew him so that Ray is kind of in a helpless position, takes that big shot to the head and is down for a while. We saw him walking off the field. It looked like he was not all there when he's walking off the field and into the locker room. I will say this, however, I did see him after the game several times, walking in the tunnel, walking in the hallways to the locker room, that sort of thing. And he looked okay. I'm no doctor. I have no idea what he's dealing with, but the fact that he wasn't sequestered or taken to a hospital or anything like that, that's a good sign for him. Whether he can play or not, I don't know. We'll see if he can get through the concussion protocol, but good sign that he was up and walking around and talking to people and things like that.
Yeah, good sign too, because the Bills basically injury-free going into the postseason. You know you're going to take your lumps at some point, but it would nice to remain healthy with the Ravens coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about how decimated they were by injuries going into the Chiefs divisional round game last season. You didn't have Milano, you didn't have Bernard. Rasul Douglas was basically on one leg. Vaughn was not himself. I mean, you were hurting. You were really limping into that game. I mean, Daquan Jones had been hurt and had just come back. So for them to be relatively healthy going into this one, offensive line, Alec Anderson was dealing with a calf injury, but he did come back into the game as well. So we'll see how that is throughout the week and monitor that and if any other injuries pop up. But to be in a better place than they were in the past with some of their key contributors is a big factor as they get ready to take on the Ravens, who are playing as good as anybody in the NFL right now.
Yeah, nice to see. Before we wrap
up.
All
right there, Chief?
I'm a little verklempt right now. We're almost to the end, K-Man. Just keep on pushing forward. Tyler Bass.
We got this.
Tyler Bass, Andy, a solid afternoon after some concerns remain. But, again, you have the Broncos with this early fake punt that they connected on that was really frustrating. I mean, the special teams have been under the microscope this entire season. The Broncos were all in on this. I think you need to be a little more buttoned up in a game like that. And, yeah, Sean Payton's known. Everyone remembers the onside kick to start the second half against the Colts in the Super Bowl. But good to see Bass. Need to be tightened up a little bit more on special teams.
Yeah, I mean, Matthew Smiley, right? Like he's got to be on the hot seat coming off this season, whether the Bills decide to move on from him or not. Just has not been good enough this year. I mean, Sean McDermott even called him out after one of the games about another fake punt. They shouldn't have been in that position, and they weren't in the right spot, and it wasn't the right call. So I mean, it's just not been good enough, whether that's been the inconsistencies with Tyler Bass. I don't know how much the special teams coordinator has to do with that, but fake punts, all these sorts of different things, return coverage, all that stuff plays a role. And it could be a big factor in a big spot. Luckily, the Bills are a far superior team to the Denver Broncos, and it didn't come back to haunt them. But against the Ravens or the Chiefs or whoever they might face on this road here, I mean, a play like that could make or break a game. So it's got to be better. I'm sure it's been a constant conversation. They got to get that figured out.
One other thing moving forward in the postseason, Andy, are these drive killers, false starts, and whatnot. I didn't see it as much in this game, but it was noticeable on a few drives where the Bills would have kept moving, but a false start here or a false start there, and you're going backwards, and it's 1st and 15 or 1st and 20 all of a sudden. And it's just tough to overcome. You're going to get some of those penalties during a game, but it's also just, it seems like that has been a theme way too much during this season.
Yeah, 7 penalties accepted for 45 yards. Broncos, 3 penalties accepted for 27 yards. And yeah, a couple of false starts. James Cook had one. You really want to avoid those pre-snap, illegal formation, false starts, those things, because those are mental mistakes. Those are things where you can prevent that. Holding penalties happen, right? Block in the back happens, whatever it is. Illegal contact, hands to the face when you're trying to block a pass rusher. Those things happen in the course of the game. They got to clean up the pre-snap kind of stuff because, again, like you said, you just put yourself behind the 8 ball where you're fighting the sticks. You could be, looking at 2nd and 5, and all of a sudden it's 1st and 18 or something like that. And that just makes things much more harder on your offense.
Absolutely. Okay, here we go. It's what the NFL wants. Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson, divisional round. That's what's on tap for the Bills. Bills looking for a little revenge, but as Dion Dawkins said, it's not really revenge we're looking at. We want to just take care of business. This time at Highmark Stadium, regular season game was down in Baltimore. Should be pretty interesting, Andy, and we'll get deeper into this as the week goes on.
Yeah, it's been 4 years since they've been to the AFC Championship game. They have not been able to get over the hump of the divisional round. And because you always are playing another usual division winner, and it's been tough. Like, they've played the Bengals, they've played the Chiefs, they've going to play the Ravens now. They played the Chiefs twice and lost in that situation. 13 seconds, the missed field goal last year. The Bengals destroyed them basically the year before that. So this is a big hurdle for this team to face a team that beat you handily during the regular season and kind of embarrassed you. You were 3-0 going into that Baltimore game in Baltimore at M&T Bank Stadium, and they handled you and they embarrassed you and they beat you 35-10. And Derrick Henry did his thing, and you didn't have a whole lot of answers. Well, this is your chance for redemption, and you've got to figure out better ways defensively to get off the field. And offensively, you might not be able to stop them defensively. So you got to put up 35, 40 points to compete with this team and have it come down to a last possession. The Ravens put up 35 last game. If the Bills are in that ballpark, it's a different game. So offensively, they've got to come with it.
Great game plan a few years ago that Sean McDermott and company came up with when they faced the Ravens at home in the divisional round. But both these teams with so many different faces on it right now, Allen and Lamar, McDermott and what they were able to do in that win over the Ravens, just not the same. I don't think you can take much from the fact that they've been able to do it before.
No, I mean, that was a few years ago now. Taron Johnson had that memorable pick six in the end zone and took it back the other way to put that game away. Lamar ended up leaving that game as well. Just completely different teams. The fact that the Ravens have Derrick Henry now and Lamar is playing as good a football as anybody other than Josh Allen in the NFL, right? Those two guys are head and shoulders quarterback position-wise. And Joe Burrow, too. Don't get it twisted. He had a great year. They just had other issues on that team. But I mean, this is what it's all about. I mean, this is just such a fun matchup. There's going to be so much talk throughout this week about the MVP race, about the Bills, and can they get over the hump? McDermott in big games, Lamar in big games. He's struggled in big games too. This is going to be so much fun.
Looking forward to it. We'll keep you updated throughout the week. Andy and I will be back on Wednesday with the next Buffalo End Zone podcast, and that's when we'll really ramp up the Bills-Ravens coverage. As always, everyone, thanks for joining us. We'll see you a little bit later on in the week. Bills win 31-7.